We feel that these updates are important, especially right now, because this information is really hard to gather and it's hard to find out what's going on out there in the world.
Absolutely. So, welcome back to All Things Acura. This is Matt.
And this is Justin.
And welcome back.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't do one last week.
We didn't get to it last week.
You did your little one last week.
Yeah. Trying to get some other stuff done, some other videos in there, and some other information out. Hopefully that's helpful. But the hot topic is just, we really want to dive into a little bit of production because, well, the lot's empty, and most Acura Place dealerships you might have been to or might go to or call, they have empty lots.
Yeah, and we're trying to get to the point quicker this time, I promise. So
yeah, so we're just going to dive right in. I want to start with a quick little letter that that was actually, it's kind of insider information. We got it at our Honda store. They sent it to the dealer principals at our Honda store. And if you've been searching out there, maybe you've already ran across this because this kind of came out once they released the letter. But they're talking about how they have to cut about approximately 30,000 units for the last quarter of the year, give or take. And basically what it says in the nutshell is they're having a challenging time with logistics. Sounds like. So they're having problems getting things from the ports to the plants.
Yeah, I think it mentions the railway.
And it does mention the BNSF Railway is having a labor issue.
Yeah.
And it's really affecting volume because obviously they're waiting on pieces, parts to get delivered to the different plants, and they're struggling being able to do that. So this is having an effect at Honda. Now, how this translates is I'm sure there's a lot of those pieces of part that are interchangeable. Yep. You know, as we well know, the Acura being the parent, the Honda being the parent company of Acura.
Yep.
And so what we did notice is that RDX production has been way down. And you put it in retrospect, last year, and even in July of last year when we had 150 cars here, 50 of those were RDX at least, right?
Yeah, it's always been our volume seller, and that's been the biggest challenge. You know, we have a lot of, I don't know, we sell on a given month, and in the past, like 50% of the cars are RDXs that we sell. The other almost 50% is the MDX, but, the RDX is kind of, the price point for where it's at. We were hoping to see more, and for a while, our list, which is longer now, but our list was, I think, 4 cars at one point.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the month, we what was left in production that we could see was 4 cars, which is yeah. I mean, I don't know if we've ever got to that point. It's
abysmal, and it doesn't, obviously when anyone, if you guys are looking for a car, it makes it difficult to make that decision about like, hey, when am I going to get my car? And we can't necessarily provide a great answer for you because we don't see stuff coming either. So I get that, but I know it did pick up a little bit. I don't know how many we have now.
Yeah, so on this last, what we call our allocation, when they give us so many cars we can order, I think we picked up 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's a good sign. Not that that's a great number, and put this in perspective, but it's a huge improvement over what we saw the last couple months of them putting cars out there. Now. Right. What are the dates on that? Since we're talking about the RDX, those production dates are kind of all through August.
All
through August. There's a couple September, and then there's still a handful of units. There's 3 or 4 of them, maybe more, 5 that have no dates, meaning that they'll probably be August cars or sometime in September.
Right.
So I don't think there's one in there that has a date past the middle of September. So what they're basically saying is we're waiting to see how that looks, and then we'll know in a week or two probably of what's after that. So it's challenging to say the least. We used to see out a lot farther than this, and that's probably what's a challenge even with at your dealership is they used to see out several months. I mean, we used to be able to see 3-4 months out, which would give us the ability to know, hey, when a car is being produced, what the volume looks like, how many we're getting. And it's harder now because they're holding that really close to their chest because they don't, they don't know what they're getting.
And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that there was a while where a lot of these build dates just kept getting pushed back, and I think maybe at that point they said, well, there's no point in showing these other ones when we can't even build what we said we were going to build.
And yeah, I think you nailed it, because I think that's what happened. So we had all these vehicles in the system, and they just kept pushing those dates back of those vehicles, and they finally said, okay, wait, let's stop putting vehicles in the system that we're just going to keep pushing back. TLX is a great example of that. Some of these vehicles, we have TLXs. We had a pretty big order bank of TLXs that were on order for quite a while, and a lot of those cars, and I'll use these were cars, and this is how crazy it is. If you look at the date when they were supposed to be built, some of these cars have March and April production time slots, meaning we ordered these at the beginning of the year, and now some of those cars are August. No, nothing into November, but getting close, right? End of August, October, end of October date. So they've shoved those cars all the way through the year. TLX is going to be, there's going to be a void in TLX for several months.
And that's not necessarily what we sell a lot of. In fact, we have 2 here, on the ground at the moment. So it's not like our volume seller, but I can imagine, in the South, we sell a lot of RDX and MDXs, but in the South, there could be a lot of people looking for TLXs. But, I'm just looking at this, and this car came, this was our Type S. The original build date, it says November.
Yeah.
Of last year. It says November. That was the original build date, so I don't know. So that kind of gives you.
It barely made it within the year.
Wow.
So,
Nice.
So TLX is going to be, if you're out looking for one, you see one that you want, or you can find one, grab it, unless you're willing to wait till really the end of the year. October, November is the realistic time frame. We have a couple of possible September dates, but they're late September. There's one with a beginning of September. And this is kind of what we see across the country too, because we run searches on these cars looking to fulfill some sold orders, trying to move things up a little bit for people. And it's across the board. I mean, there's nobody that has anything, on sooner than this.
Right.
This is just really, and they build them in groups too. So, there's obviously a lot of A specs in there.
Oh yeah.
The challenging trim, and I think someone even asked us in one of the comments, are the advanced models. Don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah.
We have not been allocated an advanced vehicle since last year in the TLX trim. We do have some sold. Matter of fact, I think we have a solid half dozen of those things sold. Yeah. And unfortunately, they're not producing that. And I don't know if it's a supplier issue. Clearly, obviously, that vehicle takes as many chips. And so if it's a chip issue, that's, if they build one of those, maybe they have to sacrifice building a couple of the others. I'm not sure.
Right.
But that's going to be a hard one to get. I wouldn't even explore looking for one of those if you're out there trying to look, because they haven't built one forever.
Right.
And if you want to order one, it'll probably be next year. I don't even see.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that about like kind of the national picture, because I know we're talking about us specifically, but we're kind of a microcosm of what the big picture is anyway.
Sure.
Every dealership has, very similar model to
right. If you're in New York City, take this same volume times 5 or 3, and that's what they're going to have. Yeah. And that's typically what we've seen. We've seen our number. And the big markets, whether that be New York City or Chicago or Los Angeles, and it's times 3. Well, okay, so if I have 10, they have 30, which sounds like a lot, but that's not a lot. And in those markets,
when you have we have we have just as many people putting deposits down, so I'm sure proportionally as they do. So it's all relative. But
so let's jump to Integra. Integra, as there's some cars in the system which aren't bad. We have 16 on order for essentially August, and a couple floating into September. We have 4 or 5 of those without dates yet, meaning they'll probably be late September, maybe even October cars. It's hard to say.
It doesn't say yet. Yeah.
All those being the A-spec tech packages. We do have a few regular A-specs, and still no allocation on regular Integra. So keep that in mind. If you're waiting for one of those, there's still nothing in the system. I have not seen one of those allocated to anybody.
Right.
And a couple manuals. Again, we saw that. We thought that curve would slide off, and it has. Right. A couple manuals, mostly CVTs. The only thing I did want to mention with Integra, though, hopefully those dates hold true, because we've had an Integra that was assigned to us at the beginning of July, and it still has not arrived. So I don't know if they're having some issues. I'm hoping it's just that one car. Actually, I'm not. I don't want our car to be that way, but maybe it's just a quality problem, that one car. But we're really close to the plants, and we get these things pretty quick. That's so we can kind of get, it's a barometer of what's going on.
Yeah.
And that car sitting in pending status for that long means they might have a quality hold. They might be having some issues with it. I don't know. Time will tell. We'll see how that plays out.
Right.
But there are some Integras in the system. Matter of fact, I think proportionately we have more Integras in the system than our Honda store has Civics.
Yeah.
And so,
interesting.
Which is
that's weird.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Honda does not have any Civics. As a matter of fact, that we might have more Integras coming than they have Civics coming in the same next 4 to 6 weeks, which is really interesting. Of course, Acura wants to put that car out there on the market. They're probably somebody's arm wrestling Honda right now for that production line capacity.
Same production line, really.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting how that plays out. And then lastly, MDX. This is where there's a little bit of a bright spot.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we went from having same thing, was similar to RDX. We got down to 7 or 8 left in the system. We now have 38 in the system.
I didn't realize that.
And they really
2 pages worth.
Yeah, we got a couple pages worth, and these are all August, September builds. There's going to be some MDX production, which is great news. What you won't see, premium models or what they call the entry level, the base model, really none of that in production. And again, they're building the meat of what people kind of want. You won't see many Type S's. There still really hasn't been any new Type S inventory or production allocated. So what's left in Type S production is getting produced right now, kind of through the beginning of next month, and I don't know what we'll see after that. But A-spec technology and advanced trims, looks like there's going to be a little bit of availability.
Yeah, I was going to say it's pretty equal across the board there. And in general, that's a great sign. Obviously, I know that's probably the most deposits we have is on MDX. So, obviously, per dealer, you're going to see probably the same kind of scenario where there's a lot coming, but a lot of people are putting their hands on those too. So, just because it shows that there's more coming, still, if you're interested, make sure you get your hands on one of those as quickly as possible. Put your name next to one, whatever it is you got to do.
And back to the RDX real quick, if you hung on, again, we're going to try to make this as quick as possible. I know that I just realized that took longer than I thought, and there's no way to go through all that fast.
Yeah.
So we'll speed it up or something.
Yeah,
we'll talk fast. Because,
no, you can speed it up on the podcast.
You can speed it up
Come
on it, right. Is RDX, the high level trims, advanced models, advanced A-spec, we weren't allowed to order any of those. Those are going to be really hard to get.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
And I forgot to mention that when we were talking about RDX. So if you are looking for one of those, you're going to have to be patient. There's nothing in the system. And I've ran searches on those because we do have some sold units, and there's nothing to even talk about. There's no production almost anywhere for those. So, it's just the more tech A-spec or what you're going to find in most of the trims. It's the middle of the road. They could probably build as many of those as they can.
The hottest sellers, too. Those are the ones that sell the most anyway. So they're going to try to do that.
Hopefully that wasn't rambling. Again, I don't know how to do that any faster. We'll learn. There's a
we're still,
shortcut
this is
way
episode 18, so we've still got 100 more to go before.
There's a shortcut way to go through all that. But we do want to touch on some comments. So
some questions on there. As we're doing this, there's another comment that's hilarious. There's all sorts of different comments we get, and I just to kind of address, obviously there's some people like you. The reason why we kind of try to get to the point right away is because there are a lot of people that say we're rambling. I get that. This is also kind of like we're just having a discussion like we typically have that we've wanted to record it in the past. We're like, that'd be cool for people to listen to. But again, we appreciate you guys listening anyway, and you're more than welcome to fast forward through it. So
get to the point you want to hear.
Right, that's right. You don't have to hear us talk.
So. Steve just left a comment.
Yeah, that's right.
4 minutes ago. Too bad, unless they make a screen into a larger and touch screen and lose that pad. Oh, the touchpad. I won't buy an MDX Type S. I was looking at. This touch screen. I'm with you. I get it. There's an easy solution there for them to make that touch screen, but I understand that. That's just not what they had in the cards, and that's not what they're going to do. Look, everybody has a fascination with these touch screens. If you ever had a car, and maybe you have or haven't, that has the touch screen for your climate controls and stuff, I don't know if I find anything more annoying than using a touch screen for climate controls and stuff. So you do want, I understand you want some of that touch. You want to act like it's your phone and type iPad. And you want some of that, but you don't want too much of that, right? So we got to balance it. And I obviously Acura went to the other extreme. Once you get used to touchpad, I like it.
It's no different than
I don't have a fascination with touchscreens. We talk about this all the time, but I know that most people do, and I get it.
they get in a car, they have to have. Well, there's not a big tablet, then it's obviously not an expensive car,
right? I get it.
But yeah, I mean, what I implore you to do is have someone actually sit down and just show you how it works. Because if you're just trying to fumble around with it, you may not know the trick behind using it, right?
Right.
And we see that a lot. And I need to and in fact, when I'm in the middle of making my video, I kind of pointed out how that works, so that way it was a part of
that's a good point. So, and I reference back to, now that we have an Integra, which has a touchscreen, right? No touchpad.
Yep.
When I was reaching up to play with it, I realized I'm not that excited about that. That doesn't excite. That's not a thing for me. And maybe it's because I've gotten used to the touchpad.
Yeah.
But you could just tell by the comments, people are infatuated with these across all cars. Like, they really have to have this stuff.
Yeah, and I assure you, I promise you, once you use it, and I purposefully, like I've said in the past, I try to show people how quickly I can use it, to show them, hey, oh wait, he is using it pretty quickly. It's not something that takes a long time to learn. Yeah. It's easy, and it's actually kind of neat.
Yeah, and ergonomically, it works better, right?
Right. I actually prefer it. I know my car have a touchscreen, and you find yourself kind of doing this. And the other thing too, you're taking your eyes and looking at what you're pointing at, and it takes your eyes more off the road, in my opinion, than using the touchpad.
Sure, and that was the whole point when Acura developed that. And I'm not necessarily defending it. I'm just not that in love with the touchscreen, and it.
I wouldn't let that make your decision on a car.
Yeah, absolutely not. Well, it reminds me, and here we go. We're a ramble. But hopefully if you heard what you wanted to hear, because we're not going to talk about anything else that
there's no more news right now, guys. So this is just talking.
But it reminds me of when so many people come out shopping and they let their 7-year-old sit in the back seat, and they say, "Well, I don't like the seat," and they go, "Well, we're going to have to go look at something else." And I think to myself, boy, when my parents bought cars, they certainly didn't ask my opinion. And when I bought cars throughout my life, I didn't ask my kids' opinion. You know what? When I came home with the car, they sat in it. And I didn't ask them whether they liked that car or not. Again, not that I'm being mean.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let them determine what I'm going to buy. And, that's kind of what it reminds me of. I know that might be a weird extreme, and it's not that I don't love my kids, but they really don't care.
Yeah, and the other issue I have is that people talk about the screens all the time, and I'm kind of going off topic a little bit here, but ultimately you're not driving along interacting with the screen very much. You know what I mean? You're not staring at the entire screen. I'm seeing the Jeep Grand Wagoneer they came out with, and you see this screen on the passenger side right in front of you. I'm like, who's sitting there staring at that screen? So whether you're a passenger or a driver, it's overkill. I get that it looks pretty, it looks nice, but it doesn't have any real value or function. And I'll leave this on my last little note here. I have a Honda Odyssey. I brought it in for service today. On my way here today, I went to turn up the volume, and there's a little bit of something happened. There was a glitch on my screen. Now the screen on an Odyssey is all digital. The speedometer is digital. It froze. It froze to the point where then it went black for 5 seconds. And I go, well, that's convenient. So it just kind of shows you, sometimes it's nice to have things that are not all digital. These screens, it's nice to have these physical buttons that you can have, like you were talking about in the new Subarus, for example. All the climate control stuff is on the screen. And there's actually a funny story that goes along with when they dropped them off. They had to turn up the heat on these things because when they were dropping off in the winter, they'd be covered in snow, and that was the only way, because you don't have the fuse in them yet to have the screen turn on.
Yeah. Well, and it takes me back to when the MDX had 2 screens and one was climate control. I mean, nobody liked that. Everybody hated it. Yeah. And now it's like screen envy. We got to have more screens. Yet people don't like the 2 screens of that. It's a little confusing, but I know I know what you want. I know you want a big screen in your car. I get it. I know what that's a desire. I'm not sure what the fascination with that. Even when I get in a Tesla and it's got a big screen, I don't enjoy using
Nope.
it.
No, it's
Right?
overwhelming.
Yes, does it look kind of,
Looks
it
clean.
looks
Yeah.
clean and it's got this wow factor, but I don't enjoy using it.
No.
Going through the menus and trying to find things.
It's a pain, in my opinion. And people are like, oh, you get used to it. I get that. I say the same thing, but I'm telling you, when you just have a screen to kind of control everything, and it's to me, the level of satisfaction is very low.
Yeah. So, sorry, Steve, but yep. If you
It's-
pass on the vehicle for the touchscreen, that's up to you. Obviously, there's things that are more important to some people about how a car functions or drives, and that's one of them. We're more based on, at least I am, I'm based more on how the car drives.
Yeah.
Going back to that, anything.
There was one, I don't see it on yours, but it says, and this kind of goes back to production. Just to bring this one up, it says, are we seeing any production improvements on 23A spec? Is nearly impossible to find in my area. This was from USD grad 95. Had to give up on a 22. Yeah, the 22s are done.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention the years when we were talking about that.
Yeah.
So, sorry about that.
Oh.
So on MDX, we're all 23. Sorry for those guys that dropped off because they didn't want to listen to this ramble. We're all on 23 on MDX and 23 model year, obviously on Integra. Everything else is a 22.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we see in the system with 20 is going to be 22s. RDX, it'll probably be a little bit before we see a 23 because of some of the constraints and problems. But that 22 came out a little bit late too. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then, right. Go ahead. Do you have one there? Oh, yeah. Did you?
So they change the infotainment screen to a touchscreen. Somebody else has the same thing. So we just talked about that too much. 3 colors I like, but with those ugly copper wheels, and he's referring to the PMC TLX Type S. Don't worry, there's only gonna be one per dealer. You don't have to worry about.
You don't have to
having
get
a
it.
chance
You're not
to
going to
get
get it anyway.
Yeah. Not like that.
The one that just mentioned every trim level gets $1,000 price increase, which sucks. I mean, to be fair, in a normal year, there's price increases anyway. That's a normal thing.
And I put that in that video, and I made that video. I think it was a 3-minute video, so I did that as quickly as I could possibly do it, and just talking about the differences, that there really are no differences between the 22 and 23 MDX, except the price. And in that, obviously, we expected a price increase. Price increase with everything today, everywhere you go. We expected that, but they also did include a couple things where you get the maintenance and the AccuRelink services. So yes, price increase, but they did give you some things as well. And I know I don't want a price increase either, but I'd rather get a price increase and get value instead of buying my box of cereal, which comes with less cereal and costs more. So
That's right.
I'm getting less value there, just the regular old price increase. But he also doesn't like that it does not have a hybrid or a touchscreen. Again, I go back to, Acura should just dive in and, just make it a touchscreen as well. As much as I don't care for it, it's not.
Just do
most
both.
people
Yeah,
want. Right, just do
whatever.
both and cave. So hopefully they will do that. 20-minute video for car pricing. Yeah, and that was the guy that was rambling. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So we're going to make it a point to change the videos up, try to get the information that the meat of it at the beginning, and we'll talk about some of your comments.
And we're just
stuff
having fun
afterwards.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just talking.
And nobody's getting paid for this. So we're just trying to get you the information
This is the bare
out.
minimum, yeah.
And if you have a better Acura source that works at an Acura dealership that's doing it for you, and they're faster, listen to them. Because there aren't any.
Yeah, and the other comment of that, the wireless charger has an issue that doesn't charge. I
was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times. I know, like on my phone, and I have a Honda, it kind of doesn't either. And actually, I'm glad that one guy replied because he said it doesn't wirelessly charge in his Toyota RAV4 Prime either. I don't think this is just necessarily like a one manufacturer or necessarily a phone issue. I think this is just something, and I haven't had great luck with wireless chargers. I don't really like them that much. I've never had great luck with them, and maybe you have. But
so when on most of the ones I've driven, when I've driven the RDX or the TLX, I've had the wireless phone charging. Now, to be fair, the MDX, we haven't had one that I could drive very much. So I haven't spent a lot of time in that car using it day to day. But the other ones will charge my phone pretty well.
Okay.
Again, my wife has an Apple phone. I have an Android. Sorry. Wife has an Apple phone, and hers is It will about 1/4 of the time will it
Yeah.
charge.
So it could be, it could be a software issue with Apple, perhaps.
Yeah, I have a
or
feeling it's a
something.
lot like the cables, where
Yeah.
some cables work and some don't, and they know and
Right.
whatever.
And to be fair, the operating system in Acura's is an Android-based operating system. So so maybe they're like, hey, Apple users, you don't get to do that very very well. So I don't know.
I mean, it does work sometimes, so it's not
Yeah.
it's not an every time. And I've tried to play with it to try to figure out what that is. It's funny. I know this is gonna sound dumb, but when I deliberately place the phone on the charger, in other words, I kind of almost give it a little thump on the
I know
charger.
exactly what you're talking about.
It works. When you just set it on the charger, it's like,
I don't know you're there.
I'm not sure it's there.
Right.
It's almost like there's a switch in there or something touch sensitive that feels the phone hit, and that's when it turns on. And I there's probably some safeguards because they don't want you to be able to throw some coins in there.
Yeah.
And that thing to start a fire. So
For sure.
there might be more to it. Maybe we'll try to dig into that a little
My
bit.
phone, that's the other thing too. My phone, it got, in fact, in the Integra when I had it sitting there, it got too hot and my phone shut down. So I'm not, again, going back to the little wireless charge thing. I know some people think they have to have it. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. You have to get your phone out anyway. Just plug it in. Your music sounds better anyway.
Right.
I mean,
It does.
that's my 2 cents on that. I don't know. Is there any other question? I had one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I didn't mention this earlier, but the Integra, a couple of neat things.
Yeah, I keep asking, and I'm just going to bring it up because I don't know if we talked about it, and maybe we did or maybe we didn't. I replied to a couple of comments. There's a lot of people asking how the noise is in the Integra,
yeah.
and I just want to bring that up. If you're listening, you're considering an Integra. I think it's got the perfect blend of, quietness and ambient noise. It's much quieter than the Honda, in my opinion. On the other side, that it's not dead silence, and I think we talked about this before, but I want to bring it up again. You don't want it to be like a tomb. You want to hear a little bit of the car. You want to hear a little bit. Obviously, you don't want screeching road noise, but I think it's as quiet as it should be.
For sure.
And you do hear a little bit of the exhaust. They made it a little playful, I guess
you're
is what you would say.
accelerating. Yep.
But it's not offensive. But I don't know who's looking for that. I'm curious. Do they just want to know that it's quiet, or are they looking for like super quiet, like where I can hear the person next to me breathing? Like I can't even stand that. Like that's why we have radios and we turn them up, right? Because we don't want that.
Yeah, but in general, I would say it's what you want. Like I don't know how else to explain that. I mean, I would say in general, most new cars probably range within a couple of decibels of each other. Really, at the end of the day, you're not like, unless you're in like some sort of high performance car where you can really hear the exhaust, or maybe like a really inexpensive car where there's a lot of wind noise, which this car doesn't have that. At highway cruising speeds, you're not hearing the engine anyway or the exhaust.
Right.
You
don't.
You might be hearing wind noise, but on this car, you don't hear much at all. So
I think it's fairly quiet, and I wouldn't want it any quieter. So I don't know if that helps you out any, but it's not loud by any means. And I know I've referenced a couple Subarus, and they're louder than crazy, loud to me, to the point where I'm saying, well, how can people drive one of those and not say that this car is quiet? So, again, we don't have a decibel meter, so we can't really tell. But I don't know if maybe that's the only way you could actually tell. But I don't.
Oh, you know what? I think phones have them.
I think it's really a personal opinion. It's what you want to hear, right? It's the noises you want to hear is what you're after.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
My last little bit on the
you want to talk about
there's and I didn't know this earlier, Justin. You said there was an Easter egg in the Integra.
Well, actually, I had it wrong. I called it a jelly bean, but it is an Easter egg.
It was the right season.
Right.
So before I get to the Easter egg, there was one other thing that on the Integra that I used the other day, and there's little things that you learn as you use the car, and I will tell you, it has the coolest windshield washer nozzles ever. Did you see them?
I didn't see them. No, I'll take your word on it, though.
I'm telling you. It's this little, so first of all, they're on the wiper itself. And it's like this little, it's hard to explain, it's like a circle. And then on that circle, there's two little nozzles that point down directly at the wiper. And so as you're spraying, when I first did it, I go, where's the spray? Why is it not spraying? And then I realized the windshield was getting very juicy. There's lots of...
So it sprays before it wipes. Does it give it a lot, the time for the I like to give it a little squirt to let it sit on the window, like do its thing.
It did exactly what I wanted to do. It was awesome.
It worked well.
It didn't spray everywhere, and that was.
I guess that's probably the big benefit.
It was super clean, and I was like, and it did a really good job. I was blown away by that.
I was funny. Sometimes you see the car going down the highway that they just used them, and the whole roof and the back of the car is all and I get some too. And
I recommend checking it out. I was just blown away by that. That's kind of reminds me of like I'm sure other brands have this, but we have on a lot of our cars we have the backup camera washer too, which is another cool little feature that you don't see very often on many cars. The other Easter egg, the real Easter egg, the real jelly bean we're talking about here is in the center console where the armrest is. There is actually, and I took a picture of this, so I'll send you that picture. There's a picture under the rubber flap, and so we lifted up the rubber flap. We looked down in there.
You thought it was underneath?
I thought it was actually part of the plastic housing, which actually probably would have been better because anyone can order that little piece that goes in there, which is fine. But anyway, took it out. I had to use pliers to take it out. And underneath that rubber thing that goes in most consoles is a picture of the first Civic. And it says, actually, I should read what it says. And that was, I thought that was pretty cool, but it actually says on it, and then I'll show it here, but you guys have it's kind of like the blueprint almost of the Civic.
Right, it's like a little,
I forget what you
shows
call them,
that.
Like the 2D layout, basically, of the car. It says the Civic history goes on. Now, that's cool and all, but I think as we were talking here, we're like, why don't they say the Integra? What they should have.
Yeah, it really would have. And there's somebody out there, and you guys are going to leave it in the comments, so we'll know. But there's somebody smarter to know why it's a Civic, and obviously it goes back to when Honda first started here in the United States.
That's fine. It's still cool. I just thought that I was like, why not just make it Integra?
I think that's far enough ago where you could
absolutely, for sure,
play heritage to it. Right?
That's right. If you had one now, it'd be a historical car, right?
Yeah, I think
it's only 20 years.
Maybe
which doesn't seem old enough anymore. And I think that's all I had. So
I think that's all we want to get to today. We just want to talk about the production. So hopefully, as we go into August, September, we're going to start to see things climb up. We'll let you know how the next order cycle goes.
Yep.
I'll let you know what's going on with that. Other than that, if you're looking for a vehicle out there, if you're looking for an Acura, call the dealership first. Can't stress that enough. Every car comes in showing it's available. Call them first. Make sure that car is available. If they have the one you want and it's available, unless you want to wait for a while. Very good.
And we still get those calls. And just to kind of piggyback on that, I get those calls. We all get those calls daily of people saying, hey, I see you guys have it in your inventory, which I get it, shows up on our website.
Yep.
Most likely it's not available. I mean, obviously you should call anyway just to double check. But most likely it's not available. What I will then caution you is don't waste your time calling every dealership under the sun because they probably don't have it either. Just get with your local dealer and have them try to get the car you want. It will be faster. I can almost guarantee you that. So
a lot of them, most of them are sold. That doesn't mean there aren't any. And I know we had a couple people that were able to find some, and good for them. I mean, they did their homework and were able to find some. And there are things that slip through the cracks. In other words, we get some extra cars every now and then. And there's also people that change their mind, right, on things that are on order, which is okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for the comments, both good and bad. We don't take them personally, but it does help us, guide what we want to talk about, but also, help us
absolutely.
learn.
Anything that you guys want to hear about the brand or about the product, we are going to start get some other product video stuff out. I know that's real the meat, and that's really what a lot of people want to see.
Yeah.
But we feel that these updates are important, especially right now, because this information is really hard to gather, and it's hard to find out what's going on out there in the world.
Absolutely.
So, thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.
Like and subscribe. Thank you, everyone.